All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Brent from The Second Look. I have the pleasure of speaking with Tannis Starr. Tannis, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm very excited to talk to you. Uh, you sent over a couple of your films, and I watched them, and I'm a big fan already. So very excited to speak with you.
Sweet.
Yeah, we want to know kind of about you and your journey so far. So let's start with the beginning. Kind of what was the thing, the moment, the film, the filmmaker, the spark that kind of got you going into filmmaking?
Oh gosh, it's probably some very bad movie from like 2005. I think I've just, you know, kind of had an affinity for the technology of filmmaking. So, I mean, I was probably like 12 years old with, my mom's iPad and we were editing on, iMovie and we were like burning DVD discs or me and my sister just to watch something that we had made like, you know, the 3 hours beforehand. But I was definitely probably inspired by like weirder movies that I shouldn't have seen. I remember walking into the Epic movie when I was too young, like watching my brothers watch it, and I was like, that there's something there's a whole different side of like the film industry that I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't even been exposed to. So I think just, early childhood movies, being around my brothers who were always watching something raunchy or inappropriate, for my age, and just the curiosity of that probably um, definitely got me started.
Interesting. Okay, so you're one of those, and you're in an amazing group of filmmakers who just kind of started as kids, right? Like as soon as you could pick up a camera and start using it, you were doing that. And maybe it sounds like maybe there wasn't even like a conscious like I'm gonna be a filmmaker. It's just like I like this thing and I want to start doing it myself and just kind of playing around with it, right?
Yeah, I definitely will say the first time that we made, my sister and I, one of our first little short films was called Diary Secrets. And we burned it to DVD and we put it into our TV. And then, like, seeing ourselves and our names in the credits was kind of like a moment that I
Yeah.
think we were like, oh, we look like everybody else who's in the credits right now.
Yeah.
So that's definitely like one of the moments that sticks out in my childhood,
Yeah.
where I was like, okay, this is like something that this is more than just like playtime.
Right. Yeah, I totally know what you mean. Seeing your name on a screen like that is a moment. It's like this is more than just a hobby, or this is more than just like some fun thing to do. Like this like actually feels like a thing. I had a similar experience. My dad, he was not a filmmaker at all. He was a dentist, but him and his friends, when they're in their like 20s, just kind of goofing around and made some fun little shorts, and just had no aspirations, but just kind of a creative energy that they used, video at that point to do. And I would just he would show those to me, and I would think, that's kind of fun and weird and different. And then I just started doing it myself again without any preconceptions about like this is the beginning of my career.
Yeah.
It's just something fun to do with your friends. Okay, so then as you're getting older, what's the next step?
Well, I had a little bit of a rough time in my teen years. I'll just put it lightly.
Mhm.
But I did end up in the hospital at one point, and um, I was like away from my family and everything, and but I did have my film journal, so my filmmaking journal, and I still have that to this day because I think I just my creativity was so active
Mm,
at that point in my life, and also I was just a young adult in general,
yeah.
but that that journal is full of so much stuff that I'm like, these are ideas I would still love to do today. But I think that time that I had to reflect upon, everything and write stuff down and write as much stuff as I could kind of let me be very like free with my storytelling and my ideas and my ambitions. Because at the time I was in the hospital and I didn't think I was going to be able to make any of it.
Mm,
But then I got out and I was like, okay, well, I might as well just, I should say where I was I was in Colorado, and across the street from the hospital that I was inpatient at, um, there was a film school, like community college. It
Hmm.
was a very like small, but um, as soon as I got out, I toured the school, and it was like very small. It's like it almost reminds me of the community college I did end up going to in Missouri, and just so tiny and barely any camera equipment. But at the time, that was like such a spark in my life to be
Yeah.
like, oh, there's an entire facility dedicated to teaching people how to do this. So
Right.
definitely like it has been like my art that I've clung to,
Hmm.
for emotional support for sure, at
Yeah.
times.
Awesome. No, that's great. I love the idea of the film journal. Now that, just to clarify, that's like I have this idea, I have this little scene, I have some dialogue. I'm just putting everything that it would go into a movie into on paper.
Yeah. I mean, I probably had a couple pages of the script here and there, and then I would all the time because we did have little iPods, so I had music, and so I would write down songs that I wanted to include in different films and stuff, and I think that would even then just spiral me on to like, oh well, I could make a western, or
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, that's fascinating. As creative people, we all have our, I guess, our ways of collecting or like channeling, taking things out of the head into into the world somehow. For a long time, just because I didn't. This was before like even cell phones or like iPhones, but like to carry around something with me that I could carry with me in any capacity. I had this little notebook, like like what like in old movies like detectives have, like a little, just a little strip of paper that I would, because you never knew when a great idea would just come and just you like, I got to write this down. So category your inspiration. I think that's a key thing for people. However, it works, for people like sometimes it's voice memos, sometimes it's writing things down, sometimes it's taking pictures. Like I know people who will be in a spot in a moment, like in a restaurant or something, and like something like is happening. Ooh, this would be a cool scene. I need to take a picture of it just to kind of remember.
yeah, that's smart.
Yeah,
Start doing that.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so you went to community college and studied film. Tell me more about that.
So yeah, I went to community college, and I guess since it was in Missouri, they don't really have a film program. But I got my associate in arts, so I did get to go to like a couple of photography classes and stuff like that. But as far as like, it was more of a fine arts sort of associate in arts, I guess. Wasn't too focused on film really. But then I came out to Arizona. ASU was the only school I applied to. I was born in Arizona and kind of just wanted to get out of Kansas City somehow,
Mm-hmm.
because I definitely knew that it wasn't going to work in Kansas City. Finding film people, getting like access to the things that I now have access to, just knowledge, people, community, building spaces, locations, stuff like that. Definitely wasn't going to happen in Kansas City. So I moved out here in August 2020 and started going to school. And the first short film I made out here was about being in the hospital. That is definitely like first film I ever really made was very different than what I'm like doing now.
Yeah. Okay. I've seen the films you showed me are all comedies. The hospital film sounds more like a drama, maybe.
Yeah, it's about a male wrestler who has anorexia. So it's just more of a walkthrough of a therapy session and then a lot of visuals. It's kind of a montage. It wasn't too much, story structure to it at the time, but also, my first time doing it, and I didn't really think I had access to as much stuff as I did in hindsight. But anyways, my first film, very dark and sad in comparison to what I tried to like be focusing on lately.
Okay. All right. How did you like film school?
Gosh, I loved ASU. I love film school, and I'm glad I went. And not only did it teach me a lot of things, it like connected me with a lot of people. I think is like the big thing that I say film school helped me with the most.
Right.
But also, like, I still keep in contact with some of my professors and stuff like that. It was at the beginning of, I came in August 2020. So it was kind of a very bad time to go to college for anybody. But, I made it work. I got on the Discords. I was talking to people at the Discords. I think that was the only rough part, was the COVID aspect. And then also, I definitely have a short film where everyone is wearing masks.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that must have been, were those virtual classes at that point? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, so they would be part virtual. So I think we would have like, depending on the class, it would be like one day would be over Zoom, and then like maybe like every second week or something we would go in and sit in the class and talk. But eventually that kind of wore off, and then we were all back into school and everything, and that was great. I was catching the tail end of I don't know how much you know about ASU Mix Center, but they were just finishing installing all of the big editing suites, the color suites, and everything. As I was getting to the post production of
Mm.
my like capstones and everything, so I get to use all that equipment. I still have like a color board, a DaVinci color board, and everything. I think like it taught me professional workflows, maybe not the most common workflows
Mm.
that you'll see like with like commercial and TV and everything, but it definitely gave me the accessibility to work
Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's many aspects that are available to anyone considering film school. And basically what you've already described is the network, the connections that you're going to make, the professors and access to them and their mentorship, and then the equipment that you'll get that you may or may not, probably not get for a while as you're just starting out. So that's another benefit for sure. Okay. And now you've graduated, and what's next? Now you started making shorts.
Yeah, I started working with Canyon Damari. He made a feature film called The Film by Charlie, and we spent a lot of last summer filming that. Very hot. And so I think towards September, we had finished filming that, and he was in post production for that. And I really liked working with Canyon Damari and Quincy Barham. It was just kind of like I'd found two people who were like kind of, we were clicking
Yeah.
as far as like film people. And so then we joined the IFP 240 to Glory challenge and submitted Sex Drive.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was, I think that we were all, I mean, we were scared they weren't going to show it, and we didn't know how it was going to turn out or anything like that. But I'm so glad that we ended up making that together. That it was so much fun.
Okay. You met during the shooting of a feature. He was shooting a feature, and what was your role on that one?
I was playing the friend character, Olivia. So, yeah, we were just friends in that big feature.
Okay. And then you made that. Okay. And then you made Sex Drive together. Very, very funny. Very, very cool. I think, and I guess outside of film school, were you always into comedy? Because from what I've seen, your I guess narrative, your timing, your visual sensibility is pretty honed, pretty solid. So were you working on comedy kind of exclusively?
I kind of want to work exclusively with comedy. So, and thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Those are a lot of compliments. I appreciate. I mean, so I've been kind of, Sex Drive was like, wow, it feels really good to make an entire like audience of people laugh.
Yeah.
That was kind of the moment that I was like, I didn't know. I mean, one of the jokes was just suggested on set. It was so last second. And it was kind of after it did so well, I was like, wow, what if I actually like, we planned this and I took a lot of my time and personal, like free time to just like try and study like comedy
Mm.
a little bit. And I had taken like some comedy classes in college and I really liked them and everything. But I think Sex Drive was the thing that I was like, okay, we should probably settle in here and do comedy because this
Yeah.
is a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah. I want to a couple of things there. First of all, is it the Toyota Thon joke?
Yeah.
because that one, I mean, I was not expecting it, and it hit me, and I was like, "Whoa, that was good." You cracked me up there for sure. That was a good one. Okay, how are you? And yeah, I'm very curious about this. How do you study comedy? Like for people watching and studying film, comedy is a very specific thing. So what are you looking for? Like, how are you studying?
So I guess first of all, I'm reading a book called Making Movies by Sidney Lumet.
Yeah, classic.
And so that kind of got me into like the studying mindset of like just reading a bunch and everything. So I'm reading that book, and then so that kind of got me into just like online reading about, um, setup, punchline, gag formulas for comedy that people talk about a lot. And then I started watching a bunch of pilots, so like of funny, very funny, successful shows that are like kind of what I'm going for, as far as comedy. So I watched like the pilot for New Girl, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Broad City, Arrested Development, like kind of like the serialized shows that I was going for. And then another thing I did, I read through the doesn't necessarily seem directly related, but I read through the TV Bible of Grey's Anatomy. Just was a fun, interesting thing that kind of like got me in the right mindset of like it doesn't really matter if it's comedy or drama. At that point, it just needs to. If I want to do comedy that's like serialized in some way, I was trying to like look at shows that have been around for a really long time.
Yeah, right. Longevity is key there. No, that's great. I mean, getting like looking under the hood, as they say, like what 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 are the scripts? What do those look like? Just because you can watch the show and get a lot out of that, but then watching the show with the script, side by side, like seeing how it goes from this to this and kind of imagining that process. But also, I know one of the links you sent me was like a trailer for a pilot, right? So in the study that kind of the mechanics or what is necessary, especially in a pilot, the things you need to set up that will suggest longevity. I think that's a key with okay. Yeah. Tell me more about Sex Drive. This was part of a competition, you said?
Yeah. So it was IFP, which is I think Independent Filmmakers of Phoenix, something like that.
Okay.
Um, but they had a 240 to Glory challenge, which is 240 hours, and I think that's like 10 days. But you have that long. So there's a meeting. They give you a prop and a line. I actually still have the piece of paper from the first one we did. But then you have to pick one of these props or one of these lines. And so our prop was, gosh, what was our prop? It's driving me crazy. Our line was "Will you kindly," and then, gosh, what was the prop? The prop was ice. So that's, I think, why we ended up in this direction in the first place, because we were trying to figure out how to incorporate the ice, and then Canyon was just willing to do, anything, and that was definitely like felt so weird asking him as an actor. It was the like first time I've ever asked an actor to like do something so kind of embarrassing like that. Uh, and so I wanted to like instead of scripting it out, uh, I kind of like fed him some lines and some jokes like, "Oh, you get my rate like 60 miles per hour in like 3 seconds." And then I think he ended up like saying something like along the like that variation. Um, and he just did so good with the improv, and he totally like took it so much better that I feel like I lucked out and I didn't even have to actually direct that as far as like an intimacy
Mm.
perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was kind of the first time I'd ever dealt with that.
Well, knowing that, uh, it's an excellent application of how to use that prop in that story. I think that was very smart. I mean, it was yeah hilarious and surprising in the moment, but now I see like okay how that came up actually led to that moment. Which for anyone watching it, we're gonna have the links below, in the description, so you need to go watch it so you know what we're talking about. But I just love To me, I love the restrictions or the prompts. Like you have to have this line. Like I love that. You have to, make it in this amount of time. You have to include this. It leads to such creative moments that would never have come up otherwise. In general, I find that that's what really gets my creative juices going is when you impose something like that on yourself. And I think, was that the same experience you think for you?
Yeah, I think like just as a filmmaker, a lot of the time I kind of struggled with wanting to like the next thing I was making, I wanted it to be my magnum opus. Like no matter what it was, I need to put like my 100% all and this has to be perfect, you know? And so IFP was kind of like, hey, well, you have to turn something in. So that was kind of like a switch in mentality for me. It's like, okay, we don't have to be perfect. We just have to like make something that fits these criteria and
Hmm.
can be shown. And even, when we made Sex Drive the first time, I didn't think it was going to be able to be shown because we had talked to, sorry, we had talked to somebody at the night they'd given us the prop and the line. And they said, we were like, hey, any advice? I think he said, make something family. So we completely ignored that advice in the opposite direction. So I was totally worried that they were going to email us, be like, sorry, due to like mature the audience
Yeah.
and everything, like we're not going to be able to play it. And then I will say that when we went back and we did it again and we did Let's Do It, there is now a section that asks, is your film mature on one of the forms? So I like to think that we got that added.
You guys are the troublemakers who had to get the rules changed. Okay, so that's great. I love that. Okay, so the whole idea is you make it and then they show it in a showcase or something at the end, right?
Yeah. And I mean, all of the films that showed were so amazing. And especially this year, it was some of the same people that were there the first time. And they had just like, you can tell people like step their game up.
Mhm.
And then, so this year in our block, there was a film called Too Fast, to Felicia. And it was so, I'm sorry. There was a film called Too Fast, to Felicia, and it showed, and it was so funny. And he ended up going to the A3F challenge, which is a different film challenge, and he won this year. So I'm so like, I feel like there's like this community that I've seen from IFP, and I know like all these other filmmakers from IFP and these challenges and stuff. Um,
That's awesome. No, I love that. The camaraderie, the community that gets instantly built around something like that, it's so great. And to see everybody else's work, it's inspiring. It gives you momentum to do better, like you're saying, like next year. Now that they're raising the bar and you got to kind of step up. I love that kind of, it's not competition, but it's incentive that you might not have. Now they don't, how did you budget? Where do the funds come for these things?
I think for I probably spent like $50 on, you know, each one of those.
Okay.
So it was just out of pocket. And then, I mean, like, let's do it. It costs a little bit more money. Like, I guess we did have to get studio space and everything for that. But before we had even started writing or got any of our props or anything, I was already convinced I wanted to do a cutaway of something. So I was like, we might as well get the studio time.
Mm.
And then I'll fill in, whatever we're going to end up doing afterwards. Um, so that studio's great. I mean, it's like $60 you go in for an hour. It's technically a photography studio. So maybe that's a tip or trick is if
Mhm.
you're looking for like a film location, don't always just look for film studios. You can go to photography studios.
For sure.
But yeah,
Okay.
mainly just what I could afford.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you tell us more about like maybe some creative like problem solving when it comes to budget? Like, okay, we need this and you don't have that, or maybe you were able to find it or find an alternative, anything like that.
Yeah. I think I have a lot of really good examples of that in for a golf course.
Okay.
Um, because there was a big part of the plot is that one of the golfers gets stuck in a manhole, and I'll leave that. That's pretty vague, but he gets stuck in a manhole, and so we obviously couldn't put an actor in a manhole. We thought about it and we were like, okay, we shouldn't do this. The actor didn't want to do it. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's back out. So instead, we had a lovely DP who got into the manhole and had shot up looking at the other actors that were supposed to be looking at their friend inside of the hole.
Okay.
So that was kind of like, what's the movie that they do this on? I can't even remember what it is. But, that was kind of one of the hacks of filmmaking that I was like, oh, and it ends up looking, because it was totally written in the script that we were planning to have both angles, just because it was not really wasn't really thinking until the day of. Golf Course came together in 2 weeks from the moment I started writing it to we had everybody together. Everything came together really fast. I was working with my boss who works at the golf course. Like he owns the golf course, so he's kind of a lot of this was also his idea to make a skit that happens on a golf course. So everything came together really fast and got to the day of, and we were like, okay, we can't put this person in the hole, but it's like the entire script hinged on like that part of like him falling in the hole. So I was like, I either have to do some serious rewriting here in the field while it's like 100 and something degrees, but yeah, obviously it was just like, okay, we'll get one POV side of it, and it ends up looking really good. I ended up kind of using that format in an after credits scene to kind of play a little joke at our own filmmaking and everything there. But yeah, that was definitely kind of a challenge and an oof on my part. Golf Course was definitely like the biggest project I've ever done. There were so many actors that were together on screen. Like,
yeah,
there needed to be like four of them almost all times together. So the scheduling was kind of like very like, okay, I have these people and I have to have everybody here today, and we can only do certain shots if we have these two and everything like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just the additional actors creates an entire layer of logistics and the behind the scenes stuff. But also, did you find shooting multiple people at the same time like another step up in like a challenge?
Yeah, it was definitely, and if I would have done, I wish I could do a golf course again, because I feel like I have just sunk my teeth into like serialized TV comedy since, and like totally just learned so much more that I wish I could have applied at the time. But I was definitely like having to focus. I should have focused more on talking to each actor individually and then directing the group dynamic. And I think I was so focused on camera, lighting, sound, everything that was going on, that I was only really getting to direct the group dynamic. So it was kind of like, this is how you feel about this guy, and this is how you feel about this guy. Kind of letting the actors take the script. And I definitely like had Zoom meetings with them and was able to talk to them a little bit, but definitely like the chaos of on the day.
Yeah.
I had to focus on how are we like meshing as a group.
Right.
And they all did amazing.
Yeah. And, okay. So this was a full, like a half-hour pilot that you shot, but what I saw was just a trailer, right?
So it was supposed to be a half hour, and it got cut to 13 minutes.
Okay.
So we're at 13 minutes right now.
Okay.
It's a very, very terrible time to have like, but I'm kind of like looking at this as like our format, proof of concept, kind of. But going back, I totally would have added like back in all of the extra stuff. It was so hot, and there was already so many days of shooting. I was like, if I can wrap this up and make something. I think also at the time I was more in the short film headspace, that I was like kind of scared to go past 10 minutes. Just because that's just not something I've done before, or I hadn't looked into the festival success and what type of festivals would be looking for something like this. And really, I should have made it a half hour. But yeah, it's 13 minutes right now, and that's my least favorite thing about it.
Well, I mean, you're totally right that this this compromise doesn't is it isn't like the end all. Now you have a proof of concept. Now you have, you could show this to people. You have a solid foundation for the next time. Like you're saying, you want another crack at it. Maybe this time, now you have something to show. Maybe investors or producers who want to get involved, and now you have like kind of the essence there that will can and will lead to better things. I guess the lesson here I'm trying to pull out is that there are always compromises. There's always going to be something that didn't quite work in some capacity or on set, and that you have to make the most of it. You have to
Yeah.
find the silver lining. You have to just make it work, and you end up with what you end up with. And I think what maybe people don't realize is that that happens at every level. Like unless you just have unlimited funds, and you can just go back and shoot it, and which some, obviously the Hollywood films have.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, right. But for the rest of us, we just have to deal with what we have. So kind of dealing with that, accepting that, kind of rolling with it, not letting it trip you up, especially on set. Like you're saying, like you're on a golf course in Phoenix heat, and you're trying to get everything you need to get done, and something happens, and it could snowball out of control really quickly. So you have to kind of like lock it down, cut your losses, those kinds of skills that they don't teach you. Well, they'll write it in a book, like, oh, this on this day we had this problem, or people watching this conversation are think, oh yeah, they had problems and they figured it out. It's way more difficult than that, and it's not until you're actually in it that you can really kind of practice that part
Yeah.
of the job.
The good thing is I think I'm kind of at a point where I'm pretty good at recognizing when things are going bad. So I kind of have trained myself to be like, okay, now is the time to perform well under pressure.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've had to learn how to like perform better under pressure, just if to be a filmmaker in general. Because totally not a very confrontational person, or anything like that.
Yes.
Um, when problems arise and you have to do the quick thinking, I have to like talk to myself first and be like, okay, now's the time that we like prove that we can be a confident person here and overcome this situation. And but yeah, there were a couple seconds on the day of the set that I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
oh no. But yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, we're like making a movie or a TV pilot or something. It's like literally the most fun thing you could ever be doing. It's like it's long hours and it's hard work and manual labor sometimes, but it's like so magical. So
Yeah, no, it should be fun at all times. In any scenario, I mean, even the comedies lend themselves to being fun already. But even like dramatic stuff, I think there's a morale that you should try and foster and sustain, especially with your crew at an hour 10 when you've been there all day. I like that what you said about like it's just a movie, like that. I think that's very important, especially for directors who feel that weight on their shoulders. They have a vision. They need to get this done. They've been thinking about this scene, for months or whatever, and it's not happening, or they're running out of time or something. Like it's painful, right?
yeah,
Because this is the only art form where you don't have the time. Like if you're a novelist, you can just come back tomorrow and sit back at your desk and continue writing, or a painter can just paint forever.
yeah.
There's a time constraint. There's lots
We're
of
like,
variables.
yeah, it's like capturing something. It's like it's a fleeting moment, and
Yeah. Yeah, because when it works and when you get something that you didn't expect, and like the opposite of that coin is those happy accidents that just you walk away thinking like there's nothing better than that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me more about. Sorry, I'm forgetting the title. Let's do it. That this was another competition,
Yeah.
right?
This was kind of I was running off my love and all the fun I had on Sex Drive, and we kind of were like, let's make Sex Drive 2 somehow, but we can't call it that. So I had been like looking at cutaways and trying to like figure out a way to develop some sort of like equation that was gonna like help guide the comedy of everything.
Mm.
And so I was like, let's just do a bunch of cutaways
Yeah.
where, different stuff happens and we can start really tame. And then by the end of it, I can have you like duct taped up in the back of my car. And gosh, I mean, like Canyon is such a great director that it makes him good at everything else he does, I feel
Mm.
like sometimes.
Mm.
But so he just completely ran with that and was so good in that role. And then, yeah, my sister, that was her first time. She just moved out with us or in with me in like September last year. And so she hasn't been out here very long. And that was her first time DPing something for me. So I kind of wanted her to DP, get the feel, and then also show up, see the IFP, go down. And yeah, I think she had a lot of fun because now we're constantly like, I'm talking with her about like, she wants to make all this stuff out. It's like definitely like IFP is such a good thing to like start a fire under somebody who's
Yeah.
like, I want to be a filmmaker, but I don't know like where to start, sort of.
Yeah, for sure. Like we were kind of talking before, like it's this built-in mechanism that makes you do something.
Mhm.
It like gives you a direction, gives you momentum, which I think so many artists of any type need. Is
Mhm.
that just that encouragement that like I have to stay in here. With these are the parameters. If it's very freeing, I find, and it just opens it up for those things to really kind of take hold. That's so great about your sister. Tell me about working with family members or friends, because this is also a very common thing for people who get just starting out who don't have a network of random professionals. How's that going?
Luckily, I feel like I kind of do have a network of random professionals, but I mean, like, working with my sister, we've been doing this since we were kids. I mean, and so she's so used, like she definitely had the moments where I've been telling her to do something and she's like, we're done with this, when we were kids.
Yeah.
I think that made her not want to work with me as adults for a little bit, but then we did that together and she's definitely got the same sense of humor that I do. And so I can definitely like trust her if I'm showing her something or, and I'm like, this is funny to you. And she's usually a pretty good indicator as to if something's going to be funny or well received, kind of like from the audience that I'm looking for. I mean, I think like working with your family members and friends, like I want to make sure that she knows that she has her own creative room to do whatever she wants and she can direct and I can, DP and I'll do anything that she needs from me
Yeah.
because I want that from her. So like making sure that her channel of creative direction and ability to make something on her own is still open. And I think that it's because that's important for like Canyon and Quincy. Definitely, when we started doing the sex drive, that was they were like, "Do you want to direct this?" And I had never had somebody ask me, and it was circumstantial and scheduling and everything like that. But it was still made me feel like so seen as a filmmaker, and I was very comfortable with them because there was this sense that it's like, "Oh, I'm not trying to be, better than you. We're just all, we're just trying to make something," which is so easy to lose out on when you go to film school, I think, a little bit,
Mm.
is people that are just genuinely in it, not to, just for the love of the game and aren't necessarily have so much ego tied to it yet.
Right. Okay. A couple things that I really want to highlight there. One, working with your sister, identifying collaborators that share your sensibility, that have an alignment in taste or in vision, I think can't be understated, because clearly you had an advantage, a head start with your sister growing up. You're probably watching the same things.
Mm-hmm.
You're formed in the same way, so that makes sense. But I guess for people looking to hire um, a random person, like a DP, for example, and that's there's two things for sure to look out for. One is, do they share your sensibility? Do they get it? maybe it doesn't even have to be that like they've always been a huge fan of that thing and they're ready for it, but at least they understand it and they can know what you're getting at. And the second is personality.
Hmm.
Are they just they don't even have to be a good person. That's always nice, but just a person who is professional and will, will understand the dynamics that are there on set, that there is a somewhat of a hierarchy that they should appreciate, but also that mutual respect, like that you're talking about, allowing somebody who's you're working with, a collaborator, to have their own space, to give them some latitude, to make them feel seen. I like what you said there. Like that's all anybody wants, especially in a pursuit like this. Actors want to feel like they're not just a body that you need on screen, that they're contributing. And that's the best. That's how you get the best work out of everybody, right?
Yeah.
Letting him feel like this is their project too, even though you're the director. That's great. Okay, back to let's do it. What was the prompt? Or what were the parameters for that one?
Let's do it. What was the? Okay, so our prop was a sponge. We had to use a sponge or something else. And then our line was, oh, we could either say I'm ready for this or I'm not ready for this.
Okay.
So I was like, either way, we can say, and we filmed both of those lines because I was like, I'll figure out where, which one works. Because I just knew I was going to want to open up that line either way. Because some of them are like kind of hard to like hide in there. Uh, Sex Drive, one of the line options was "Will you kindly," and so I kind of tried to work that into like an end credit scene and everything. But yeah, so it was. I think we ended up saying I'm not ready for this, and then the sponge was the prop, sponge or a pencil, and then actually we used the pencil as well. I put the pencil in my hair at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, and then to write the list.
Right. Right.
But so I think it was like SpongeBob and Star Wars themed, and we either could pick SpongeBob or Star Wars, and we did SpongeBob.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, and I just love the concept. It's a great idea, and I like it's a great. I like that you said you're looking for a way to work with cutaways and how to and then I think you found a really creative, fun way to do that where it doesn't seem, I don't know. I think that mode or that presentation style, that structure could feel like cheap or you're just, it's like jokes for joke's sake or something like that. And I think you found a really good way around that to tie it to something that is both funny but also genuine. Like there's actual like personal relationship kind of thoughts that are involved. So it's not just this again superficial jokes. It's like tied to like, oh no, like this is the beginning of our future together or not, and like here are some of the variations of places it can go. So like it had a real substance to it that I just don't think comedies are known for or assumed to be. But I think again, I think you found a really clever and meaningful way to do it that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I definitely am like, I'm a woman, so I'm trying to, a big part of the whole film, thing for me has always been empowering women in film
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So, I never exactly have done something so direct talking about like, women or anything, but it's definitely something I try and keep in mind when making jokes about like, relationships and sex and stuff like that. And a golf course, I was definitely like some of the more raunchier, like, men women dynamic that I've done. So that's like kind of like a tricky area because I think it's like so easy. The default is like, oh, like with a golf course, it's like, oh, my wife won't let me golf. My wife won't let me drink. And it like that's so rundown and boring to me.
Right. Right.
And like, so I definitely tried to, if there was kind of the jokes with the women and men dynamic, trying to be like aware of that was like a difficult thing to navigate. Even as somebody, I'm a woman and, I know what I get offended by. And still it was like, okay, I have to like toe this line of like, what's realistic? Are these men actually going to be saying? And what can I kind of like, how can I do this in a funny way without
Yeah,
being just perpetuating this language and kind of stuff like that?
that's great. Yeah, I love that. I think you're onto something there too. What's realistic and what's realistic, what's cliche, what's the difference between those two? If it is realistic and it is a cliche, if you go too far away from that, you're too broad, or you're losing people. Like, these aren't characters, like these aren't fully formed characters anymore. These are, different for their own sake or something like that. So you have to like thread
Yeah.
that needle, but being conscious of how you can bend. Like, you don't want to break from tradition. You don't want to break the whole mold of that kind of comedy or those kinds of characters, whatever. But you have to bend it just a
Hmm.
little bit, because that's how things actually change, like, permanently. If we just went a complete 90 degrees, people would recognize that. But I think it's more powerful to do it subtly when
Hmm.
people aren't really paying attention. It's not so obvious, and you've still managed to take it in a slightly different direction. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely like there were some times that I could tell like a joke was kind of getting, or some audiences could interpret a joke as being like derogatory towards women or something like that. I tried to make sure it was like, hey, we're laughing at, the people who are acting like this.
Huh. Right.
This is, obviously like everyday people don't treat girls like, this, or, aren't supposed to. And that's the ridiculous part of it all. So I guess it was trying to bring women back into like the comedy instead of the joke being about women in these situations, kind of make it something women can laugh at. Like, hey, yeah, this is the stupidity that cart girls actually do have to put up with, and that sort of stuff like that. So yeah, definitely uh a lot of like thinking for that
Yeah.
for those parts. It kind of felt like I was undercover, like I was writing a comedy that, you know, wouldn't take any of these things in mind or try and like,
Yeah.
and then obviously, so there's one of the main characters in a golf course is Bonnie Hawks. So I fought really hard to get a female main character in there. So definitely like small things, I can't obviously put it in everybody's face too much, or it becomes unrealistic with a golf show
Right. Right.
specifically. But it was definitely something I tried to be cognizant of.
Yeah. No, that's great. You may have heard the expression sugarcoating the pill, right? Like, you're hiding something, you're being subversive, like you're saying. You're injecting some of these ideas into what's, otherwise a pleasurable, just fun comedy. But there's little ideas in there that, again, if there was just like, if you were like really aggressively pushing against those things and breaking the tone of the show, or the realism of the characters, I think it works. But then you don't make a fun, enjoyable movie, and people, it doesn't have the same effect.
Definitely for also the demographic that is kind of going to watch a golf comedy show that is this raunchy is definitely not going to want a whole bunch of
Yeah,
feminist agendas thrown down their throat at every joke.
totally. All right, last thing, you have like like merch. You have like a store, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
um so Shooting Star Studios is my production company. It's kind of what I've been running these comedies through. And so I make like black t-shirts with the your product, or like your crew position on them. So that way if you need something for set, you have something to wear. And then also there's film merch. So there's like Sex Drive merch and Let's Do It merch. And then of golf course merch I'm working on getting out there. But I could show you a shirt real quick.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
I bought this one for to be a Canyon's first AD, but here they are. And then
That's
uh,
awesome.
is the back. So I know you're supposed to wear all black on set. It's kind of tries to honor that on the front. and I gave up a little bit on the back. But I definitely like want to make comfy merch for filmmakers, and then also that will be such a fun thing for if on my next project I can like give my DP or some people a shirt. And
Yeah,
that's the least I can do to say thank you. So
sure.
I just at least set up that avenue, and then yeah, so I can do something with that later. But yeah, if you want an awesome, comfy black shirt for set, it makes it very clear what your role is.
I think that's great.
starstudios.com.
Yeah, no, we'll have the link for that as well. I think it's a great idea. It's almost like a name tag for people who aren't familiar. Like I can see exactly who does what. It's very smart, very cool.
Thank you.
Well, Tannis, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. I'm so happy for you and and your work. I'm a big fan. Like I said, I'm really excited to see what happens next. What is happening next? Do you have something in the works?
I've just been writing things here and there. I've got a couple short film ideas. Hopefully, something very soon. I
Awesome.
need to get something out.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Well, thanks again. Um, and have a great day. Welcome to the Second Look family. And we'll keep in touch, and all the links for your films and stuff will be in the description if anyone wants to check it out. But yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah.
Bye.